It's the Joe Show. It's the Joe Show! With me, Joe! This is the show where I read an article a day to keep my stupid away. You learn something, I learn something, we grow together. Today, however, I'm not going to be reading, I'm going to be listening to a show that I like to watch called Rising, about American politics, where we have someone from the new right and someone from the new left talking, Krystal and Saagar, and normally I like both of their opinions. I think that this is a really great show that kind of has an unbiased, non-confrontational vibe to it. But today, I took a little umbrage with Saagar's opinion, I'm going to be honest, because I'm a tech person and I think that he just missed the mark with this one. So let's see what Saagar has on his radar.
Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign has a new cause. It's got nothing to do with policing, with solving the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression.
Okay, to be fair here, current administration also doesn't have a plan to solve either of these issues, and it only seems like they're focused on the stock market and, as Krystal calls it, the graph of rich people's feelings. So if we're going to be calling people out, let's call out both sides.
It is instead going after Facebook for not having the temerity to do what they want them to do and censor President Donald Trump's accounts the way that Twitter did earlier this month.
Okay, so here's where I take the first umbrage right here, is we're talking about censoring accounts. And if you're not familiar with what happened, Twitter has been quote unquote fact checking or mommying some of Donald Trump's tweets, and it's something they're experimenting with, and apparently Saagar has a problem with it. So if you come to this tweet from Donald Trump here, you can see here the tweet in the white. It says, "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen." Oh, I'm sorry, hold on, let me try that again. "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you." And Twitter put this blue bar over it that says, "This tweet violated the Twitter rules about glorifying violence. However, Twitter has determined that it may be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible." And if you come to this page fresh, I did earlier today, you actually have to click an accept button, I believe, on that. So maybe this is what the censoring is that Saagar is talking about, is that you have to click an extra button to see the tweet. But in my mind, this isn't censoring. Twitter, I'm sorry to break it to you, Saagar, is a company, a public company, more like a private company that is traded publicly, that is saying anyone, including Trump, including, let's say, Justin Trudeau or Angela Merkel or Abe from Japan or Putin, on their service, violated their terms. They have the right to do whatever the fuck they want to do. Whatever they want to do. If they want to just mark it as false, they can mark it as false. They chose not to do that and had a pretty innocuous warning that just says, hey, this violated the Twitter rules about glorifying violence. But they still left it up and they still let anyone see it. To me, that's not censoring. If you want a real censorship, you can look at China. China's real censorship, where they're literally scraping the web, looking for any negative talk about their leadership. And then they take it a step further and pursue those people and also remove it off the web. That's censoring. This is, as Krystal called it, mommying. Barely anything. And they, as I mentioned, have every right to do it as a public company. So let's keep listening, though.
Biden did the most DC thing of all time, where he leaked that the attack was coming to the New York Times, instead of just launching an attack outright and getting a...
I'm with you on that point. Kind of lame. And by kind of, I mean very lame. Biden. Also want to point out, at this point, not a Biden fan.
Nice little press release before firing off a tweet. Containing an open letter, it demands that Facebook, quote, promote real news, not fake news, quickly remove viral misinformation, end the pre-election quote unquote lie period, and enforce voter suppression rules against everyone, even the president. Now, all of this sounds innocuous until you really begin to dissect it.
Actually, I don't think it sounded innocuous. I think a lot of that sounded really quite damaging. I mean, they're calling for Facebook, to be an editor, and which I actually disagree with. I don't think that Facebook should be an editor. They're saying suppress fake news. What is fake news? Who is fake news? That is a very tough thing to call for. So I disagree with Biden's approach here.
In essence, a candidate for president of the United States is asking for Facebook to begin fact-checking political advertising.
A potential presidential candidate is asking Facebook to fact-check political advertisements. I don't think that this is a big ask, honestly. What they're requesting from the Biden campaign, if this is true, is to fact-check propaganda. Propaganda is the main tool of an authoritarian regime. They suppress the media, tell you not to trust it, and then feed you their own propaganda. So I think that media in general has a job to do in fact-checking things. So I think asking this of Facebook is a very small request.
Including his own, especially 2 weeks before Election Day. Now, why would Joe Biden, a proven liar on dozens of issues in the public realm, from his role in the war in Iraq, his role in criminal justice, his record on trying to cut Social Security, and even on supposedly getting arrested while trying to see Nelson Mandela, want there to be fact-checking of political ads on Facebook?
So now we're talking about Biden's lies again, which is going what it feels like back to Burisma, which if I hear that word again, I swear to God, I'm going to explode. I'm so sick about hearing about Hunter Biden and the nepotism that happened in Burisma when Donald Trump is just as guilty as so much nepotism, and the right is guilty in general of nepotism. They're all guilty of it, left and right. I'm sick of it. If we're going to call it out, let's call it out on both sides. And Joe Biden being a liar, he lied, but he's also hella forgetful. He probably didn't even realize he was lying at the time. He just totally forgot what the hell he was talking about. Like, we see it every freaking day with Biden. It's actually quite embarrassing. I worry about his mental health, or if there's a tumor going on. I mean, we saw it with John McCain. With his decline into having brain tumor and surgery. And also Trump, a serial liar, a compulsive liar, pathological liar, lies about literally everything. So let's not talk about lies right now. If anything, they should be fact-checked because they're both proven liars. We should want them to be fact-checked.
Well, the answer is simple, as all risers know. He knows that if Facebook were to ever get into the fact-checking business, that they would partner with the mainstream media.
That right there is some bullshit. That right there is some serious bullshit. We've already seen, if you are a tech person looking at Facebook, them side with the right side, not the left side. So that opinion is completely biased from Saagar. Facebook has actively tried to help suppress right side media. And we can also go in history and look at what happened with the Donald Trump campaign and their use of Facebook. Like, trying to say that they didn't use Facebook is insane. They hired a guy whose specialty was Facebook advertising for Trump's campaign at the very beginning. It was just I don't remember his name. I don't remember who he is. I heard an interview with him, but he's a Facebook advertiser. So, like, saying that they were somehow suppressed and that they were going to side with the left is completely ridiculous, Saagar.
Who have no problem giving Biden a blatant pass on his lies while crying foul if Trump sneezes and calls it a cough.
Agree with that. Left really needs to be more self-reflective, as well as the right. Both sides need to be better about calling their own party on bullshit.
Then they rate it false. 4 Pinocchios, 5 stars. As I say every single time that we have this discussion, you may get a warm little fuzzy feeling when you see a lame CNN journalist call the big bad Donald a liar, but the neoliberalism that animates that CNN journalist is coming for you if you dare to hold anti-establishment views. These are the people who would fact-check AOC on the cost of Medicare for all. They're the people who got mad at Bernie Sanders for correctly saying illegal immigration depresses domestic wages. And they're the people who bend over backwards to say that we're all wrong on this show about trade because you're better off with some cheap Chinese crap.
Agree with Saagar on that point. On all of those points, I do think that the left media does go after anyone who stands against their talking points. I mean, the right does the same thing, but the left is very guilty of it, for sure, 100%. And I also agree on the trade thing about China. One of the reasons why America is in the position it is now is because it depended way too heavily on China. And we thought that they weren't going to grow. We thought that they weren't going to get powerful as we just continued to feed them money. And it's not only America. Like, this show is very American-centric, but all of the world did that. And that's why China gained so much money and also gained power.
Their profession can better be described as neoliberalism checking, far more than fact checking. But beyond the actual mechanics of fact checking, think about the macro ask of the Biden campaign here. They want tech oligarch Mark Zuckerberg to determine what is true and what isn't in our political discourse.
So, I didn't hear that specific request from that statement. I didn't say, hey, we want Mark Zuckerberg himself to make calls on political discourse in the country. But I think that we really need to have a frank discussion on both sides about the role that social media plays in shaping perception, not only in America, but globally. You guys talk about it as an America-centric thing, but Twitter is used everywhere in the world. There's people seeing these tweets from everywhere and using it everywhere. So if they want to start fact-checking, they're in their right to do it because they're a global platform. And Facebook should be doing the exact same thing. No one has a right to a Facebook account. Not everyone is seeing the same stuff already. There's algorithms serving Saagar different stuff than me, which is, I mean, you could consider that censoring. The algorithm is technically censoring. It's not a one-size-fits-all news feed. So if they want to fact check and want to suppress Donald Trump's tweets, they're already doing it with the algorithm. And the problem is that it's just feeding an echo chamber so that only Trump supporters see his Facebook posts. Which, why even is the president on Facebook and Twitter so much anyways? Like, that's another question we should be asking. I don't see Saagar asking that question here. Like, dude, get off Twitter. There is a global pandemic that's ravaging the economy of the United States. And meanwhile, we're just caring about the stock market. Stop tweeting law and order in all caps. What are you doing?
Or worse, they want Zuckerberg to appoint a weird so-called independent board of directors made up of a bunch of moneyed neoliberals to decide what we see and what we don't.
Or they could do it democratically. Let's face it, Facebook is bigger than most countries in the world as far as reach. There's never been a time in history where we have had such a powerful platform that reaches billions of people at once all over the world. None. There's no country that can compete with that. We're talking about one of the most powerful, influential platforms in the world, and you're discussing it like it's an American problem. There should be some sort of independent board. Perhaps it should also be an independent board from leaders from multiple different countries who review this stuff. Because it's not just an American problem, dude. You're thinking on a small scale, Saagar. Like, you don't understand the power of that platform. And we should, in our government, be having a real discussion about it. Not this lame clapback from you, not this half-handed bullshit attempt from Biden to suppress Trump's power on Facebook, and not Trump trying to turn everybody against the media like some sort of authoritarian dictator. We should be having these discussions in Congress, but they're too busy doing nothing, as you said on this show the same day. You praise Bernie Sanders for calling out Congress to do nothing. These are the conversations they should be having. How to save the economy. What the influence of these social media platforms actually is. Should they be regulated or should they not be regulated? Should they have independent boards of people from all over the world, or should they be regulated internally in America? These are important motherfucking questions, dude. And you just making it into a right versus left bullshit issue isn't helping the situation.
Zuckerberg doesn't even want that, and neither do I, and neither should you. Biden's ploy to use the power of the establishment liberal dominance in the media sphere to silence the sitting president of the United States is part of a broader delusion that pervades the chattering class.
Silence the president because he can't tweet? Bro, you're obsessed with Twitter, self-obsessed with Twitter. You've said it so many times on the show that you spend way too much time on Twitter. But as I said before, it's not a public utility. The president doesn't have a right to a Twitter account. Sorry, he doesn't. And if they booted him off the platform, that isn't silencing him. It's not like he can't go to and have press releases. He's supposed to have press releases, he or she, the president. They have a press secretary that's supposed to be doing daily press briefings that stopped during this administration. First time in history. Because he's too busy tweeting. That's how they're communicating on Twitter. Maybe he should be kicked off. Make real press releases. Put some thought into it. Go on TV like other presidents did. It's not like we had Twitter all of history, dude. Silencing the president because he can't tweet, or silencing Biden. Who cares? None of them should be on it. Really. Them being on it, politicians getting on it, has divided the country even more. We can probably see a direct correlation between allowing politicians to get on Twitter and really heavily using it, and the country being more and more divided. So I don't want to hear this nonsense about silencing the president. It's not silencing the president just because he can't tweet. He's not entitled to a tweet. I don't see that in the Constitution. Get out of here. Freedom of speech, especially Twitter. You don't see that in the Constitution. Not silencing the president. Stop being so alarmist and extremist about it.
These people genuinely believe that nobody in their right mind could have ever voted for Donald Trump unless they were tricked into doing so by some Moldovan bloggers, some stupid Facebook memes, or a clickbait headline.
No, that's what your talking point is. Because you fail to understand the enormity of Facebook's influence. That's what you believe that they're thinking. That nobody in their right mind would vote for Donald Trump unless they saw a Facebook meme. It's a proven fact that it has power over turning people white supremacist. I've listened to so many different accounts of people getting served white supremacist ads when a family member of theirs started clicking on stuff that was white supremacist. Because they were on a internal demographic in Facebook that said they might be persuadable to white supremacist stuff, or they would get upset by it and thus spend more time on the platform. So let's not pretend like Facebook doesn't have influence. Again, it has more people on it than any country in the world, and an algorithm that's serving people things to either incite them to stay on the platform or perhaps sway them in a direction. It's the biggest propaganda machine the world's ever seen. And you're just going to say that it has zero influence? I think that's crazy, Saagar.
Some stupid Facebook memes, or a clickbait headline. They think Trump voters, or even Bernie voters for that matter, could never hold the positions that they have without getting duped into them. And thus, if we're bombarded with their propaganda, we're going to change our lying ways. The opposite is true. As corporate media has taken over the discourse, there has instead been an explosion of free-minded, independent people who have decided to opt out by watching places like this show and many others on social media. The movement shows precisely what those with power on social media are: those who refuse to swallow pre-baked narratives for them, that they serve those who were powerful before the internet revolution.
So I'm gonna cut it off here and say, I understand the sentiment here, but I disagree with what is being said. So he's saying that all these people have decided to opt out of mainstream media and that they're so scary smart, but that's a very niche population, unfortunately. I agree that there's a large population of people that do that, but it's niche in comparison to the larger population at a whole that doesn't have time to seek out things like Rising, that doesn't have time to do anything except either watch Fox News all day or CNN all day or MSNBC or whatever else is out there for the right side. Most of these people aren't consuming this type of media. And if they are, they're consuming crazy whack jab way outside the mainstream media, conspiracy theory nonsense for both left and right sides is what's reaching them. Just the wacky stuff, because that's what gets attention. So I think it is good that, people listen to this show specifically because it presents both sides in a very, 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 like I said, non-confrontational and semi-unbiased way, although this one feels a little bit more biased, this particular piece. But I hope that we can start having a more important discussion at hand about the role of social media globally, not just in America. Because these are very powerful platforms, and dismissing them like this and making it into a purely political aside that's like a left and right, don't want to see your propaganda in America is a very dangerous precedent. And we need, as a country, a unified country, to have a serious discussion about this topic, about the role of social media and its role in politics and in everyday life and how influential it is. Because we don't know. There's never been anything like it before. We're literally living through it. This is a grand social experiment. We have no historical precedents for this. None. No platforms have ever been this big with this wide of reach at this scale before. We have zero precedents for it. So we have to have discussions on how influential is this stuff? Why is it dividing us so badly? Is it right for a president to be on Twitter? Is it actually silencing him if he's taken off of the platform? My opinion, no. Plenty of other avenues. Is it silencing or censoring if they decide to append something to a tweet or a post? I don't think so either. If they want to mommy, they can mommy. They're a publicly traded private company. They have a right to do whatever they want. When you sign up, you agree to their terms and conditions, period. No matter who you are, president or guy down the street. We all play by the same rules. That's equality. That's fair. If someone violates it, they should get checked. If it's your grandma or if it's Donald Trump. So let's have a more informed discussion about this, hey? With that said, that's been the Joe Show. If you like my content, hit subscribe below and hit the bell so that you can get notified every time I upload a new video, which at the moment is daily. Follow me on Instagram for show highlights and general behind the scenes stuff at A Joe Show. Otherwise, until next time, read something good. This has been The Joe Show.